Our old relationship of steadily deepening integration with the United States is over.
Ladies and gentlemen, gather around while we embark on our journey through the whimsical world of international relations, where maple syrup meets baguette.
With Trump's tariff threats and the political consequences. Recently, when U.S. President Donald Trump imposed and then suspended tariffs on all Canadian products, it got many there thinking, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Well, Canada's leaders are apparently rethinking their ties to the United States. They're turning to another partner, also targeted by Trump's tariffs, an ally on the other side of the Atlantic, the European Union.
Yes, we're diving into the curious case of why Canada just might swipe right on the European Union amidst its current lovers' quarrel with America.
Tariffs, as you know, will start a week earlier than the reciprocal, which is going to be on a couple of weeks earlier. Reciprocal tariffs start on April 2nd. And I wanted to make it April 1st, but I didn't want to go April Fool's Day, because that costs a lot of money, but that one day. But so we're going April 2nd. But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico.
And if you haven't already, make sure you drop a like on this video and leave a comment letting me know how you feel about this situation. Okay, so once upon a time, in the land of hockey and polite apologies, Canada found itself in a bit of a pickle with its southern neighbor, the United States. Picture this. President Donald Trump, in his infinite wisdom, decided that Canadian steel and aluminum were just as threatening as a moose on roller skates. So on March 4th of this year, 2025 for those that are watching in the future, he slapped a 25% tariff on these imports, citing national security concerns. Because, you know, nothing screams danger like a well-crafted Canadian beer can. Not to be outdone, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney channeled his inner lumberjack and swung back with retaliatory tariffs of $21 billion of American products.
President Trump has just announced a series of measures that are going to fundamentally change the international trading system. Now, in doing so, he has preserved a number of important elements of our relationship, the commercial relationship between Canada and the United States. But the fentanyl tariffs still remain in place, as do the tariffs for steel and aluminum. As of this evening, the tariffs on automobiles will enter into force, and the U.S. has signaled that there will be additional tariffs in so-called strategic sectors, pharmaceuticals, lumber, and semiconductors.
Among the casualties, American steel, aluminum, and tragically, bourbon. So as you can imagine, Canadians wept into their poutine as the price of their favorite southern libation skyrocketed. This is where we dive into the toilet paper fiasco. As tensions escalated, the US realized it had a pressing issue. Turns out, a significant chunk of Americans' toilet paper comes from Canadian softwood pulp, which is an issue when it comes to this international trade relation situation. So, with tariffs in place, the prospect of a TP shortage loomed large. Imagine the horror. A nation forced to confront its bathroom habits head on. Wild, right? Experts warned that the supply chain was about as thin as single ply, and shelves could be emptier than a Tim Hortons at closing time. And thus began the rise of the Buy Canadian crusade.
With this U.S. tariff threat when it comes to timelines, what's going to happen? Another theme that's been emerging is this idea of a Buy Canadian push. As CTV's Krista Sharp found out today, though, that sentiment can sometimes be difficult to fully put into practice.
Some consumers are choosing to buy Canadian ahead of American tariff threats.
I am shopping Canadian.
I noticed the stores are putting on more labels that say shop Canadian.
But some experts warn
it's tough. It is difficult, and it depends where they want to draw the line.
Mike Von Masso, a professor and food economist at the University of Guelph, says the fact that our labor force and supply chains are so integrated makes it difficult to label a product as fully Canadian or American.
As an example, PepsiCo is a large American company, one of the biggest food companies in the world. They own Frito-Lay, who produces Lay's potato chips. And so they're on the list of don't buy American.
Meanwhile, in the Great White North, a movement was brewing stronger than a double-double from Timmies. Canadians, fueled by a newfound sense of patriotism and perhaps the lack of affordable bourbon, began shunning American products. And as you can imagine, the Buy Canadian campaign gained a lot of traction, with local brands like Irving Personal Care seeing their shipments quadruple. Even Walmart and Canadian Tire jumped on the bandwagon, prioritizing homegrown goods over their star-spangled counterparts.
The Buy Canadian movement has become a huge force in the last week alone, changing how and where people shop.
A vast amount of people are only purchasing made in Canada products.
Grocery store owners like Marilyn Dibb are astounded by just how quickly Canadians have dumped American products in the wake of President Donald Trump's tariff threats.
They are completely boycotting the American-made product.
And at the Canada-US border, officials are reporting a huge drop in southbound traffic at some ports of entry. In Blaine, Washington, near Vancouver, wait times were just 5 minutes, down from the usual 19 minutes on a Sunday, let alone Super Bowl Sunday. All of that has some U.S. lawmakers furious with the president.
It unnecessarily harms a relationship with Canada that's been such a good relationship.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear says Canadian demand for bourbon has dropped off in the wake of Trump's aggression.
And thus the EU courtship began. Amidst this continental tiff, Canada started casting flirtatious glances across the Atlantic. In fact, a survey conducted this year in 2025 revealed that 44% of Canadians were actually open to the idea of joining the EU. I mean, after all, Europe had croissants, fine wine, and a distinct lack of unsolicited tariffs. So Prime Minister Carney, perhaps envisioning himself donning a beret and mastering the art of the baguette, began advocating for the reduced economic dependence on the United States.
Yesterday's actions by the U.S. administration, while not specifically targeting Canada, will rupture the global economy and adversely affect global economic growth. The global economy is fundamentally different today than it was yesterday. The system of global trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over. Our old relationship of steadily deepening integration with the United States is over.
He proposed strengthening trade relations with Europe and Asia, eliminating internal trade barriers, and promoting clean energy sectors, because nothing says moving on like cozying up to 27 new partners simultaneously. But as with all grand romantic gestures, there were complications. You see, the EU's foundational treaties define it as a union of European states, which posed a slight hiccup since, well, Canada isn't quite a European state. So joining the EU would require a legal overhaul akin to convincing a cat to take a bath. Which is technically possible, but highly unlikely. Some experts suggested that Canada could pursue a relationship with the EU similar to that of Norway or Switzerland, involving bilateral agreements that grant access to certain aspects of the EU market without full membership. Think of it as Friends with Benefits International Trade Edition. So currently, while the idea of Canada joining the EU might seem as foreign as a moose doing ballet, the underlying sentiment is pretty clear. Canada is eager to diversify its alliances and reduce its economic entanglement with an unpredictable partner. And I'm guessing y'all know who that is. Strengthening ties with Europe offers a promising avenue, even if full EU membership remains a distant dream. In the end, Canada's flirtation with the EU serves as a reminder that in the complex dance of international relations, it's always wise to have a few more partners on the dance floor. And who knows, perhaps one day we'll see a maple leaf waving happily alongside the stars of the European flag, united in their shared love for universal health care and disdain for warm beer. So thank you all for joining me on this roller coaster of toilet paper, tariffs, and international relations. And remember, in the grand theater of geopolitics, always expect the unexpected and keep a spare roll handy just in case. Take care. Peace.